Welcome to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Today, we are speaking with Alice, Doyard, and Anthony Giacchino about Colette. Sponsored by Camera Museum of London at 44 Museum Street.
Hey, it's so funny because this just came in the mail from. This is like a stand.
Oh,
Put the iPhone on. It just is easy to.
okay. Fantastic.
Easy place to- And it's nice to meet you.
Likewise. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks for.
extremely
Yeah,
moved
thanks
by the
for doing
film. And I
Thank
think
you.
it's, we're going to go into details quite soon. There's a number of people that'll be joining throughout. This will also be released on podcast as part of the documentary podcast series that I'm currently hosting. We got lots of people there. I recorded an interview with Kim Longinotto many years ago. That will be on it soon, and many others.
Right. Hold on one sec. Okay, so I'm going to. So when we, Elise, are you doing the same thing on? Are you doing the same thing on your iPhone, like we did last time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I do the same thing. And you personally, I'm doing also radio I'm a radio producer and do a documentary on radio for the BBC. And
Yes,
I'm using Adobe Audition.
I know it. Yes.
But and this equipment works well. So you just
Fantastic.
tell me, Anthony, and so like we coordinate.
Yeah.
Coordinate
I'm,
when we clap.
Yeah. I have it in the smile zone, as they would say. So, okay, if you want, I'll clap to give you something at least. I don't know if you want that or not. Last night I every once in a while, I when putting the kids to bed, my kids are like 11 and 8 years old. I'll just take out my voice memo and just I hit record. And I just sort of just talk to them and ask them things. It's kind of funny listening over the last year. So last night I did it, and I was like, so how was your day today? Anything sort of exciting happened? This, and they're like, I don't know. It's kind of boring. School was like, okay, yeah. So you had a boring day today. That's good. Like, and let the future note that today was a boring day for the kids. And they're like, why are you asking this stuff? I was like, well, I don't know. I remember something that happened this morning that was actually kind of exciting. And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot that was this morning, and of course it was the Oscar announcement, right? So, but it was just kind of funny to me how like it happened. It was like, yay. And then they were just like off to school and they just went on as normal, for them. So anyway, that's from the point of view of a child.
Right. Can I
This is
ask,
good. They
Anthony?
keep things into perspectives.
Yes.
Yes.
Anthony, sorry to interrupt. Anthony and Alice, can I ask, how did you two meet?
You know what? January of 2018. I have, it's so funny. Did I send you the email yesterday, Elise? So I knew I was going to France. I was going to be scouting for just a World War II ideas.
Right.
Nothing was really firm, but I needed somebody who could, help organize things, take me around, who spoke French, who knew the area. And I was typing on Google, French fixers, this, that. And I came across Elise's name. And it was weird because it wasn't even like on a website, but it was almost like a scan of her card on something. And I remember trying to blow up the screen so I could see it. And I was like, oh, I think that's her email. It's a Gmail address. And I just sort of coldly said, hi, Elise. Thought it was Alice, of course, but I was like, hey, my name's Anthony Giacchino. I'm working on World War II project. And I'm going to be coming in April of, this would have been 2018. So this was in January that I emailed her, and I was like, I'm just curious, is this the type of work that you do? Would you be interested? And like, that's it. So we didn't know each other beforehand. And as luck, or I would say maybe it's fate, would have it, she was like, yeah, I think I can do this. And then we had a few just email conversations, over the next couple of months, and then we met up. And oddly enough, I would say that I had just come. Now, we don't know Colette. Elise doesn't know Colette. We don't know anything about this story. I had just come. What's that?
Before you talk about Colette, maybe I can continue your story about how I lived this beginning of our when you called, and then
yeah, sure, yeah.
So, and then I'll let you speak about Colette. It was interesting because indeed, Anthony, he found my name on a card, on a business card that had been taken shots and put on internet. I don't really know why and who did that. The truth is that I was not on internet as a fixer anymore. It was a status that a kind of job that I was doing, but the years before the 2018. At that time, I had already directed or assisted the direction or produced documentaries. But he called and asked me for this work as a fixer, and I thought, well, I don't do this anymore. I'm not sure that this is the right thing to do, but look, I have no job just now, and this guy seems interesting. I love his story, and I will work with him on the basis of a fixer. And this is just to say that sometimes you get to work with someone with a different positioning or delivering a different mission, and then it can evolve into something completely different. And indeed, we met each other in Normandy. So now I am.
And I would say that I had just come from Dora concentration camp. Again, not knowing, just not even knowing the story, but we had just visited. In fact, it was myself and Rose, who was our DP. We were just kind of scouting different locations. That was one of them. Yeah, we met, and we remember we went out to dinner that night. We just we got along really well. We had a lot to talk about, and then we hired a tour guide to take us around Normandy, and it was the tour guide who's then just says, hey, I know a woman who was in the French Resistance. I could possibly introduce you sometime. And so Anthony, it was like there was no plan for this. It just sort of, it was, our editor, Aaron Matthews, likes to call it documentary luck, where it just sort of came together, in this way.
Yeah, Anthony said, oh, a woman resistant? Oh, I'm interested. And I was also interested in this, and that all these different interests came together, and we made it. We shared our interest to make something that became very special, and particularly since yesterday.
Do you remember how the moment you met Colette? What was your reaction, both of you?
Well, at least you met her first, so you know.
I can start on this. Yeah.
First, and I'll tell you mine.
What was your impression?
The first impression that I was in front of someone amazing, with a beautiful voice, with vivid memory of the war, and very who like to communicate, to transmit, to share, and to share stories of the war that were our own stories, not only the history you can read in the books. She says, I'm not an historian, but I can tell you what it was to be 15 during the war. And so we thought it's a good start. We arrived with Anthony and a team of 10 people in Colette's apartment in Caen. We put apartment upside down so that we could put a camera there, another camera here, a translator there, like we had a big screen between her and me, because we did not want her to, we wanted a special light on her face, but she was not happy because she could not see me. So it was very difficult, let's say, but she was very authoritative, very calm, and very precise in what she wanted to do. And we had a very strong interview, and we all ended up at the end of the interview thinking, this was an amazing moment. We lived something very special. We want the world to know more about her, and we want to do something different with her. We want to go on to embark on a full story, not only an interview. And Anthony, you want to?
Yeah, that first time that I met her at the apartment, and you also have to understand, like, just a little bit about our crew as well. Like Rose, our DP, will always kind of at first sort of like, I don't know, maybe go for something really out of the box and say, well, why don't we do something like this? And I remember I was downstairs getting food with another member of the crew, and I come up, and Rose had started like a fog machine in Colette's apartment, right? And it's like, well, I'm thinking maybe that. I was like, no, Rose, like, stop. You know what I mean? We don't need any, not for this interview. We've already taken her house apart. So and then, as Elise said, she was kind of combative in the interview because she didn't like that she couldn't see Elise. She wasn't comfortable in her chair, and you sort of just knew she was this, force, that she sort of had this real, she was, I mean, at the time she was 90 years old, right? She was 90 or 89.
89.
But really sort of, and the one phrase, and it ends up in the film, that she said there in that always stuck with me was, wait till it's your turn to experience a war. Right? Like, because we're sitting here, because it was sort of like, you're coming here just asking, you just think it's all these questions and this and that. She's like, okay, wait until it's your turn. You'll see what it's like. So yeah, formidable, right? However, even in the combat of that interview, when it was over, okay, and I had just thought, oh my God, she's telling us we turned her apartment upside down, and and all of this stuff. And when we put everything back and we were taking pictures with the crew, she said, if you ever want to come back, to Normandy, you always have a place to stay. You can stay in my apartment. You're always welcome. But don't expect me to play tour guide to you. You can sleep here, but I'm not going to take you around all the time. But I love that already we were invited back when the interview was over. Yeah. So as Elise said, we just sort of had a real character here that an interview, we soon kind of in discussions realized just a sit down interview was not going to be enough for her. We needed to do something more with her.
What we can say, like, that we noticed during this interview that she was a fighter, right, during World War II, but right, she was also a fighter in her daily life.
And what cameras were you using? How did you shoot it? And how was it financed? What happened next? And where did Lucy come in as well?
Well, I can talk about the financing. I mean, we shot that interview on the Alexa Mini, but we didn't end up using any of it, any of that interview, that first interview with her, used the audio. The audio from that interview was used throughout. Okay, so and that ends up being the camera that we used throughout the production also. So the financing is really interesting part of this. So when I reached out to Elise in January of 2018, and saying, hey, I'm looking for some stories, it was because I had been hired by Electronic Arts, which is a video game company, who was making they were making a World War II video game, but they wanted as part of the game a gallery section where there was documentary content. Wasn't clear necessarily at first what it would be, but I knew the director of the game from a previous project. So he knew my work, and I sort of knew what he liked, and it was kind of a very open thing, like, why don't you go and see what kind of stories? The one thing we're interested in is that you talk to people who were involved. And then it was sort of like, it was kind of like go. It sort of is, I honestly say it was obviously like a dream situation, right? Because rarely do you get to scout, as much as we did on the, on this project, without even really fully knowing what our stories were. But we were allowed to go to Europe, Rose and I. And in fact, when do you scout with the DP on a documentary? It's very rare. But the concern on their end was that they knew they were making a game, but they didn't want the younger people who were playing it to just think the whole thing was a game. They wanted it to be grounded in some kind of reality, right? That they could actually learn something about the war, to see that, while it may be fun running around blowing up Nazis and all that kind of stuff, real people were actually doing this, and they were young people. They were probably the age that they were when they were playing. So that was the idea. And then we were just sort of let loose to say, go find some interesting stories. And that sort of was the context in how we found Colette.
It's a very ideal way to make a film. It's almost luxurious. That's true. To have the time to recce, to have the time to think about the best stories.
And those sequences, you've got Colette, then Lucy, and then she goes to Germany, and then you all go to Germany and follow her. Whose idea was that?
So maybe I take over to say how we found Lucy. I knew what Anthony was just saying about the spirit behind, to have real people in action, and also to talk about, to be an educational content. So when we met Colette, after we decided that we wanted to do a real story around Colette, we researched her brother, because she shared her the story of her brother, and we noticed that it was close to her heart, which is always a good start. She was also, it would allow her also not to pose as a hero, that because she's a resistant herself as well. She was a nurse in military hospital after the landing, just after the landing. So this is what she really was very active, and why she got medals for. During the war, she says she did small things, but still she took a stand. But so she is someone who is happy to talk about, to pay tribute to her brother, but who doesn't want to show off too much about what she did herself. So we investigated more in details the story of Jean-Pierre Catherine, who was deported when he was 17, and finally arrived in Dora, where the V2, V1 rocket were built. Anthony knew this place already, so we had the idea that something could happen here. She said that it was not unforeseeable for her to go to Germany. So we stopped and talked with her for this phase lasted 6 months, where we together wondered how we could make sense for Colette to go to such a emotional journey. Because she is into this transmission, the idea to have someone, a young person, together with her started to make to come to our minds. And by investigating the story of Jean-Pierre, we discovered that a museum in France, La Coupole, who was connected to Dora, which was connected to Dora because they were where the rocket were launched. They had a special bond with Dora, and they were sending a group of children every year to the slave labor camp. So I called these people and I told them, look, what is your next group going to Dora? They said, too bad, it's gone already this year. So I said, we are trying to do something around Jean-Pierre Catherine. And the history of the director of history of the museum said, okay, so I have a young person here who has never been to a concentration camp. She's really interested in that. She's helping us in writing a book that gathered all the biographies of the French deportees to Dora. Among these, there is Jean-Pierre Catherine. So I can ask her to write the biography of Jean-Pierre Catherine and to go with you so that she would live this experience that she's really interested in and has never got the opportunity to have. This is how we were introduced with Colette from the people of the Museum of La Coupole.
And Anthony, and both of you, how did you understand the German and the French? Did you have translators?
So, luckily, I speak German. I was a German. I studied German and history here in the U.S., and I spent 2 years in Germany. I had a Fulbright at the University of Freiburg. I lived there for a year. Went to university. I lived in Leipzig for a year. So the German was not an issue. And Elise speaks German also, because Elise also lived in Germany. And in fact, we had members of our crew were German as well, so that was an issue, but the French was a problem for me, of course, right? For me, obviously not for Elise. So what we did was we had a simultaneous translator who was with us at all times. So I had an earpiece, Rose had an earpiece, and Colette's and Lucy's microphones were being not only picked up by the camera, but transmitted to a translator. And he was then just listening and then just reading into, just repeating it into a microphone that he then transmitted to us. And so we sort of we could experience as their journey went on. We understood everything that was happening.
I recall very vividly that Colette got very upset when the former mayor of the town gave a speech. She thanked him, but she couldn't really handle it anymore. What was it like really being there for all of you? What happened next? What was the feeling? What was the emotion? I mean, is that something that
it was quite a moment. That was so what happened so that was our first full night in Nordhausen, and we wanted to just have dinner with the crew. We had sort of the way we approached it with Rose and just in terms of filming was that we would have the camera ready for anything, but we weren't going to be filming at every moment along the way. We were allowed to have dinners without filming anything. I mean, that was sort of important for us. It would have been a long journey getting there, but also there's sort of a team building aspect to that. We're still kind of getting to know each other, and and I just sort of want to make sure that people are relaxed that they feel comfortable and that they really do know each other. So that we were there in that spirit. Now, there was a gentleman, his name is Jens Bonish. He was like a liaison for us. He works at the Nordhausen in the police department there. He's an inspector there, and he has a really interesting job in that he takes new police recruits to Dora to teach them about the history of National Socialism, of how police forces can be misused, and they get a real education in this. And he leads those. He does seminars there at the Camp Memorial. So we had met him earlier, so we had invited him to come to dinner with us. But he brought a +1, the mayor, which was sort of why the mayor was there. So that kind of just happened. We didn't expect. And for me, I didn't think it was that big of a deal that the mayor wanted to say something, right? And not knowing that it would have the effect that it did, but it was just like, okay, we should probably just film this. It could be a nice sort of greeting. But Colette, she felt otherwise.
Colette found differently. Yes, in fact, this scene is also interesting because it explains the relationship between the crew and Colette. And we were organizing how to film, and we were sometimes, it was in the camp, it was really structured, but here we were also leaving sometimes things happening. And this was this type of moment where we see what's going to happen. Colette is at the table, and the mayor starts his speech. So you see in the sequence that there are different languages that are spoken, so that everybody can understand each other. And when the mayor is speaking in German and about his childhood, so a time that Colette could relate to, it's probably created in Colette something that was suddenly uncomfortable because it reminded things that happened in her childhood, where she could hear German, but in a very aggressive environment. And she was not ready to share with us what she was feeling. So she said, stop. And the camera did stop. And this is impressive because, or this is noticeable because this also explains why afterwards or before, it explains the trust that there was between Colette and the crew, Colette and the camera. And how Colette finally shared her emotions because she knew she was safe to do so. That if it was overwhelming, we would stop the camera.
Right. Yeah, and she was very honest, during the encounter with her, in the camp and later on. I'm going to open the floor to other people if they want to ask any questions. We've got about 10 minutes left. During the moment of the inside the camp, did anything change? Did Colette change after revisiting the past in Germany? What was your impression?
There's something that we really, one of the things that the final shot in the film, where they're there and the camera's pushing in and they're so that is, and we don't explain this in the film and stuff, but that is the actual room in which Jean-Pierre died. That was a sub camp of Dora, and it was that was inside of the city of Nordhausen itself. It was called Boca Caserna, and that was the space where if you were too weak to work anymore, you were just sent there. It was like the quote unquote infirmary. But in fact, you were just left there with no water, no food, and you were just expected to die. And that's what Jean-Pierre, that's where he died. And we sort of had mapped out like the journey of Jean-Pierre, like at the camp, then into the tunnel, then to Boca, the way we shot it. Then we went to Boca Caserna. And Colette, I think, felt at that moment that she was finished, right? Elise, right? I mean, but we knew we had to go back to the crematorium because, in fact, his body was cremated. And she was sort of a little bit arguing about, like, she wasn't sure, well, we were there. Why didn't we go to the crematorium before? And I think she was, like, done with it. She didn't want to go back there. But she finally said, well, if Lucy wants to go back, we'll go back. So we end up going back. But we cut out the Boca Caserna part just because continuity, it just was kind of hard to be bouncing back and forth, right? We just found that it wasn't like it just didn't work story-wise for the short film.
Right.
But we went back.
But I would say that yes, Colette was very much changed when she when she entered for the first time the camp. That suddenly she was inhabited and by old souvenirs, and she opened herself in the car where that was taking us from the hotel inside the camp. There was Lucy also in this car, and the Rose, the DP, and Colette. There was a silence, total silence. Whereas, as you see, Colette is a talkative person, or she likes to share. But there was a silence, a thick silence. And suddenly, when we arrived on the road, just before we entered the camp, she said, "Look at the trees. They were probably there at the time, and they might remember what they've seen." Lucy started to cry. Rose started to cry. I cried myself. And Colette, we knew that Colette was opening her heart. So this was the beginning of the.
I was actually at that moment, I was waiting for them at a predetermined spot in the camp, which was close to where Jean-Pierre's, where she had realized that she didn't bring flowers and stuff. So I was just waiting, on my headphone, waiting to hear, waiting, and then I could hear them. And the first thing I heard was crying in the van. And I just thought, okay, because I didn't, we saw Colette the night before get angry, right? But it wasn't necessarily like surprised, but I was sort of like, I couldn't believe already sort of the emotion had hit them before they got out of the van.
And what's finally what's the message for future generations from the point of view of Lucy? How did she react at the end of it all, or throughout the process? What was it like for Lucy behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes. So Lucy, she was really impressed. She was very young. She was 17 at the time, the age Jean-Pierre was when he got arrested. And she was very full of admiration for Colette, and a bit reserved also as well, but with a luminous eyes wide open. Voilà, she was eyes wide open, and so this was really interesting for Anthony and I, because we thought, okay, this is a young person who just wants to know. And she doesn't have any agenda. She doesn't have any. She's not here to find an explanation, or to find some sort of approval of something that she would already think. No, she was open, and this to us, this is one of the wonder that we found while filming, is that Lucy was open, and she was conveying a voice that we wanted to hear.
Okay, we have about 3 minutes left. And any final comments?
How about from some of the students here? There must be some questions, right? Are they students?
Yes, that's correct.
Come on, Leonardo, you must want to ask something.
Hi.
2 minutes left. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, quick.
I noticed Colette. She has like a very strong personality. I wonder, like, off cameras, if that was something that you as a crew had to deal with, or it just flow naturally.
She's the same on camera and off camera. She's exactly the same. You have it all. And but there's things that we filmed, that the crew filmed on during the we were all together in Germany, that we did not show because it was not our story, but it happened during our stay in Nordhausen, and it's an encounter with bikers, because she was a former biker, and she got along with she made new friends who were German bikers.
Yes, so sorry to interrupt. Can I resend a Zoom link, because the Zoom recording is expiring in about 30 seconds.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
we'll have maybe another 5-10 minutes, if that's all right.
it's fine with me. I think you can just click on the same link, right? Can't we?
It's a bit complex,
Yes.
but let me resend it just in case. Okay,
Yeah, no
everyone, I'll send everyone the link. We'll be back soon. Intermission time, 3 minutes. Thank you. It's recording.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a clap again.
Okay.
Clap number 2. Okay.
Right. I've sent everyone else the new link.
I did not stop the audio, so you
Okay.
will have to put it.
Okay. How did the Guardian get involved, and when did they get involved, and how did they dictate the storyline, or were they fairly
No. We you know, that would have been summer of 2020 when we first started talking to them. Our producer Annie Small met Charlie Phillips at the Guardian, head of video at Guardian Documentaries. I think met him at IDFA sort of in the previous November. This was before the pandemic, and then we followed up with them. They watched the film, they loved the film, and they said, we commission our pieces, but we feel this is special, and we'd love to acquire it for Guardian Documentaries. So the film was finished, when it went to them.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. And again, I just want to I sort of just point out, this idea that, again, remember, the initial the reason we were doing this was to kind of provide educational content to a game, right?
Yes.
And then it becomes, then it crosses over into the realm of journalism and newspapers. And
Yes.
and there's something really interesting about this idea, I think, to us is that, we're living in an age where journalism is struggling, right, in terms of finances, and games are doing really well. And here's like an amazing crossover where a gaming company was like, okay, let's get it on the Guardian, right? And so I just, that's really just kind of a fascinating thing that's come out of this. Now, will this be like a one-time thing, the only time this will ever happen? I hope not, but certainly it's I don't know another example like this, where a gaming company got involved to do something like this.
Will some of the content be available in one of their games?
So this film will be on in the game for sure. You can watch this film there. And then there are like 7 other short films, but small, not like this. They're like 4-minute pieces, 6-minute pieces, just featuring different veterans that we also brought back to Europe. But none of them had the sort of the depth and breadth of the story that Colette had.
I'm wondering what was the worst and the best experience of filming.
Colette?
Yes.
In Colette or in general?
With Colette, yeah. In Colette.
Well, the worst and the I don't know, like worst is, it's kind of hard to say worst. I think maybe difficult might be
Challenging.
like I found it very hard, and and this was just from being behind Rose, the camera, like the moment when she realized she didn't bring flowers, like it just didn't even occur to her. Like that was really, really hard. That was a difficult moment, I think, for us as a crew, to witness it. But we also end up witnessing, like, that's a moment sort of where Lucy and Colette realize that they can help each other through this. So it was also sort of really, really special. So, that was it. And Elise and I, we never argued it. This is true as this, but we had maybe teeny disagreements sometimes about just about like one of the big discussions we had were about like photographs of what should we show Colette, or should she see imagery of this? Now she had already seen stuff. I was wondering whether it would be beneficial to maybe look at some of that stuff while we were there, or like would that bring up some kind of emotion? And Elise was very much against that idea, you know what I mean, like that we shouldn't do that, but we had discussions about it. I'm glad that we didn't, you know what I mean. If Elise wasn't there, I might have done that, and now I mean, sitting here with all of you right now, I could see why that would not have been the best idea. But at the time I was just, I don't know, I was just kind of searching to sort of make this as real as possible. I think there were like little things like that.
Right.
And also it comes from how you enter the story with archive, with your knowledge of history, with your deep interest in the World War II. So bringing pictures, photographs of the time, that for you it was important because this was also things that were important. And I came I came through Colette. I was concerned about her well-being, whether how she would feel about what was going on, and so I was pushing so that we would protect her, maybe from and also I was thinking, okay, there's so much emotion already. So, but that finally at the editing phase, there is the I think the right amount between the story that we were filming and the history that was that because it's also a film about history.
Absolutely. And Richard, I just want to, to this point where, again, so, when we came back with all the footage, it was like, I spent time 2 days at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in DC, which has an amazing archive. It's incredible, and a library and archive. And there is so much material from Nordhausen and Boca Caserna. And Boca Caserna, if you remember, is that subcamp where Jean-Pierre died, and where so many people who were at the concentration camp died. There was like, we're used to people just having their iPhones and snapping pictures all the time, right? But there were American soldiers who had their own cameras also, and were taking pictures of this. Just sort of the amateur photography in these camps is kind of incredible. And the amount of it, it was kind of staggering to me. I couldn't believe there was so much material. And so I'm like pouring over, because soldiers just donated this material, over the years. And I just thought, people have to see this. I mean, I kind of was feeling maybe the reason they were taking these pictures, because it was so unbelievable. And I just thought people should see this because it's real, and this stuff really, this happened. And but I do think, and those were conversations I had with my editor, Aaron, and sort of, I think there are only like really 3 photographs we use when they first get to the camp. And then there's some archival of some of the prisoners, but we did sort of really scale back on that. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did. But it was kind of a struggle for me, even after. We
Yeah,
were
absolutely, especially when you're there.
Yeah,
Can I
yeah,
ask how the editing process took place? How was editing? Sorry, Alice.
No, I
Alice,
just
you want to
want,
say something quick?
yeah, I wanted to say something quick, but maybe
Yes.
after the editing, it should just as a conclusion. That
Okay.
we'll come back.
Okay.
So
We'll come back
the-
to your question about what was easy and difficult during the film.
So the editing was interesting for a number of reasons. One was everything came back in French, right? So everything, and we're talking about 10, 15, I mean somewhere, maybe even 20 hours. I mean, a lot of material came back in French that needed to be transcribed into French, and then it needed to be translated into English. And after that process, which took about a month, but when it was all said and done, I had a book like this thick now of everything, and then I just sort of went through everything in English, but had to kind of match time codes with the French. It was complicated. It was really, really complicated because Aaron and I, we don't speak. Aaron like took a French class like years ago or whatever. I mean, so there was like a little bit of an understanding, but we really were dependent on that book, and that book was compiled in large part by Elisa's daughter, who happened to be in New York, Zoe. So she like really helped sort of match all of that stuff up for us, and then she had to match all of our clips with the transcript. I mean, it was a huge effort, but it took a lot of time. I mean, it was like I said, it was like over a month sort of waiting for the translation process, and then certainly 3 weeks probably for Zoe to kind of match up everything and make sure that because when she left, it was like that was our guide.
How close were you to the edit? Were you sitting down in the edit every day? Were you thinking about,
yeah,
this should go there, this should go there, or this vision?
Yeah, Aaron and I, we share an office in Brooklyn here, which is, I mean, the room I'm in is bigger than that. It's a tiny office. You know what I mean? Our desks are near each other, and yeah, and it was, but Aaron went through every frame. He watched every single frame. My second viewing of everything was actually the transcript process. And then I sort of, I made kind of like string outs based on those transcripts, but he watched everything. And in fact, there were like just these little moments, like Aaron talks about, like when Colette says, I know once I cross the border to Germany, I'll never be the same. Like that was just something that, he sort of just found as he was watching everything, right? Like we didn't throw that question to her. She offered that up, to, I think it was to Perique, who was our AC. They were just kind of chatting, so Aaron was going through and finding little moments like that just, were telling like the larger truths, of this, of the story. And that's kind of like the point of it. I'll never be the same once I do that. So it was long. It was like really, really long. I mean, we edited it this summer, and and we didn't we weren't like, oh, it has to be 24 minutes. We sort of, it became what it was. And by December, I think it was December, it was by mid-December, we were pretty much finished. And then, all along the way, we're setting cuts to Elise, right? I mean, not difficult to do. It's uploading stuff, and sort of making sure sort of that we seem to be on track with stuff. So, yeah.
Interesting. Future plans? What's next?
What's next? Well, an Oscar campaign is the immediate. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting process, because you get to, you now need to introduce your film to the Academy, right? Like we were, prior to, and I know what you meant by what's next, but I'll just say immediately, this, what we're really going to be involved in for the next month is trying to get as many people in the Academy as possible to watch the film, so that they would actually have been able to make a real judgment on it, right?
Yeah, they've
So
got to put a vote, right? In the
That's right.
envelopes, so to
It's
speak.
ranked voting. There are 5 shorts, and all members, and there's like 9,000 of them now, because we're not just dealing with the documentary branch, but the actors, producers, sound
That's
effects. I
why-
mean, everything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why, just saying that everybody might know someone who might vote, be able to vote at the Academy. So really, all of your pupils, just students, just promote the film, or leave comments on Twitter, on Facebook, on please do Instagram, please do, because this is a real campaign. Like it's also part of the
process,
game,
right?
the process itself.
I would say, what's you know what? Darn it! I just lost my thought. Sorry, Elise.
We just saying that in 30 minutes we have to go. And
Oh, yeah,
before
yeah.
we have another interview in 30 minutes. Maybe Richard, unless you find your thought, Anthony, I just want to say briefly that I'm also working for the BBC, and I'm currently also making a film on PTSD for the BBC. Voilà, this is the campaign. But what I really wanted to say about when you say what is difficult and what was easy, is that when you do a film like Colette, you have you give yourself to. Are you okay? Is there a problem? No.
I remembered what I was going to say.
Okay. So shall I say my thing and then
I won't forget now.
Okay. So when you do a film like Colette, when you embark a 90-year-old woman who's strong, but who you are protecting, because you are responsible for her, and we were also responsible for the young Lucy. And so when they went through all these emotions, we were also there with them. So when you do such a film, you give your heart to the film. We have all been inspired and deeply transformed by the film, by filming Colette.
How so? How do you feel now? Are you going to preach to the younger generation about what can happen if things go wrong?
Well, I mean, I hope the film does that. For sure. I mean, I think that the film sort of stands as a testament to that, right? About sort of we've talked a lot about Elise and I sort of. Well, she had mentioned Lucy, sort of as a the younger generation, just wanting to know the truth about the past, right? Not someone who's interested in living on a myth of the past, or what she thinks it might have been, or hoped it was, or wished it was, but that would truthfully examine it, and hope, and that you can kind of put that on any country's history, right? So hopefully that it would do something like that. It would serve sort of as a warning, but also as an inspiration, right?
Yes.
An inspiration of resilience, right? Of facing your past, for sure. And I would say this also, when Elise is talking about like giving yourself, and this is true, and I kind of feel like it's very because we have all been there before. It's very easy to be discouraged when you work so hard on something and you feel maybe that it wasn't recognized, or it just kind of didn't get out there, or the circumstances were such that you just couldn't get it out there for whatever reason, right? And that happens to everybody, everyone. And I'll just, we were not accepted by the major festivals, like not by Sundance, not by Toronto, not by Tribeca, not by Berlin, not by Cannes, not by South, like none of the big festivals took our film. we were not accepted into these big film festivals. And, we had always thought, wow, like we just think it's something special. So that's just also, I think, what's happened to us now and where we are now, kind of a lesson for us also to kind of remind ourselves that you just shouldn't give up, when you're making these things in your films, and not to be discouraged, because believe me, we were discouraged many times, I think, in the process. But it's been great to get where we are. And it's just I just want to say that also to especially students out there, that you should never, try your hardest, but and there are going to be sort of defeats out there, on your films, but it doesn't mean, that 1, 2, 3 defeats doesn't mean that that your project is dead.
Thank you, Anthony and Alice, for these encouraging and interesting words. I want to just nearly finally conclude. What would Colette say about what's going on in the world today? Did she have an opinion on these factors, on the political situation?
Yes, she has an opinion to say that she's really much encouraging the young people to take a stand, to fight against inequalities, to fight against what they think is unfair or should not be, or any sort of any expression of evil. She's a fighter. She was a fighter during the war, and she's still a fighter when she's 90 in her daily life, and going to the camp, confronting her past, the wounds of the past, was a combat, as Anthony said. And she says go. She says to the young, take a stand to what you believe in.
I saw the question from Mizgin Arslan. Did I say that correct?
Yes.
About The Guardian. We mentioned this a little bit, but The Guardian had seen the film after it had been finished, and they told us that they normally do commission their documentaries, but they liked this film. And Charlie Phillips there said that he felt that it was special and that they would like to acquire it for Guardian Documentaries. And that's really what was there. That's just how it happened. It was great. We're so happy to be with them because we're on this worldwide platform now, right? That people from all over the world can see it now. It's an easy place to send them, right? It's been great.
I think the story is very strong. The message is very strong, and certainly this year, I think it deserves to win the Oscar, in my opinion. And finally, anyone else got any questions? Don't be shy.
I have a last one, okay? I wonder how big was the size of the crew in the day of the shooting? Because learning documentaries, how to make them, I strongly believe, like, if you have a huge crew and a big camera, this can interfere, like, in emotions. And sometimes if you think only about the quality of the image and not the environment that you are building there, this can be like an obstacle. I don't know. How many people were there?
I think at our biggest, we were maybe like 12 people, 11 or 12. But not everybody was there, like, right, in the action, right? The crew, was even a specific driver for Colette, who would be, who was specifically with her, or there was someone who was like, I hate to use the word handler because that sounds so impersonal, and I'm thinking of Theodora because it was extremely personal, their relationship. They became very close, So Theodora was with Colette and just making sure, right, that at all times, when we were off camera, that she was being taken care of. We had people from, the crew was interesting because we were from the United States and Germany and Great Britain, Italy, Belgium, Holland, right? Of course, France. Yeah, so we had a really great and fun international crew. But it was we were very clear, and I think like Elise also sort of was very good at reminding people that we had to like help carry Colette and Lucy through this in a very gentle way, like, you know, that we were there really always supporting, you know, to support them, because it was not going to be easy for them. But then the other thing that it really like impressed me about sort of Elise talking about this was just the recognition that Colette was going to need to be, in a sense, taken care of after the trip, because, you know, you wouldn't be able to go through, or you shouldn't go through something like that kind of a trip, and then we'd be like sort of off to the next project and saying see you later. And that was sort of really Elise's doing, and I'm glad we did it, because, you know, we're just in constant contact with her now. Yeah.
She loves the film.
Nice.
She's very proud of the film, and she's the first leading this campaign.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. The film is awesome.
Thank you.
We need to go. I'm sorry, guys. We need to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Much appreciated. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Should you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please get in contact. Sponsored by Camera Museum of London at 44 Museum Street.